The London Consensus represents a new economic framework for the 21st century, emerging as a response to the limitations of the earlier Washington Consensus, which dominated global policymaking since the 1990s. The Washington Consensus was a set of 10 economic policy prescriptions introduced by the British economist John Williamson in his 1990 paper, What Washington Means by Policy Reform. It chalked out a set of 10 commandments. It said that thou shalt exercise fiscal discipline, thou shalt prioritize public expenditure, thou shalt undertake tax reforms, thou shalt decontrol interest rates, thou shalt ensure competitive exchange rates and move away from overvalued domestic currencies. Thou shalt undertake trade liberalization and you will eliminate quantity restrictions and reduce tariffs on imports. Thou shalt promote FDI, that is foreign direct investment. Thou shalt privatize the government sector companies. Thou shalt undertake deregulation. Thou shalt uphold property rights. These 10 policy prescriptions came to be known as the Washington Consensus. The strings were attached with every loan that was given out by international donor agencies or banks like IMF and World Bank. Even in case of India in 1990s, when we were going through an economic crisis and finally were forced to undertake what we refer to as the LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, globalization. These reforms are nothing but another name for the Washington Consensus because, after all, we were borrowing money from IMF and World Bank are all about the Washington Consensus policies. Initially seen as a pathway to prosperity, the Washington Consensus eventually faced criticism for fostering hyperglobalization, income inequality, and social dislocation. While countries such as China, Vietnam, Mexico, and India benefited through industrial growth and export expansion, Western economies experienced manufacturing decline, job losses, and wage stagnation. The 2008 global financial crisis further reduced faith in neoliberal orthodoxy, highlighting the need for a new economic paradigm that could better address inclusivity, social stability, and sustainability. In response, a group of 55 scholars gathered together in 2023 at the famous London School of Economics, drafting a new framework called the London Consensus, an effort to define guiding principles for modern economic governance amid emerging challenges like climate change, artificial general intelligence, populism, and democratic decline. So, what exactly constitutes London Consensus? It rests on five broad principles. The first being focus on well being. Economic success should go beyond GDP, incorporating factors such as social cohesion, self worth, and mental health. Second, make growth matter. Growth must create quality employment, reduce overall economic inequality, and enhance citizens' trust in government. Third, build resilience. Government should act as insurers of last resort, protecting citizens from shocks or black swan events like pandemics, climate change, or global trade disruptions, especially the Trump tariffs. Fourth, put politics first. Unlike the earlier paradigm of Washington Consensus, which put economics first, the present London Consensus puts politics first because ignoring political realities can generate economic instability and public backlash. And last but not least, invest in state capacity. Effective markets require strong regulatory and administrative institutions to ensure fairness, investor confidence, and social trust. So now let us compare the Washington Consensus and the London Consensus. The major limitation of the new economic consensus is the London Consensus does not offer very concrete, specific, actionable directions for policymakers, which the Washington Consensus did, whether it was for good or bad. Second, the London Consensus authors have argued against the one size fits all approach that tends to be too rigid or too ideological. So the London Consensus authors have laid out five broad core principles using which each nation can decide which policies are best given its unique history and circumstances. How useful this approach is going to be in future remains to be seen, or whether it would have the backing or acceptance that the earlier Washington Consensus had remains to be seen.